Hello my friends, Mystery here, and today we're going to be tackling ranking the Skitarii's weapons, the melee weapons that is. And there are only 17 total, including all marks, which means we're going to get to spend a little bit of time getting to know each of these weapons and what they can do. And hopefully my goal is with this is to advise you in terms of if you have limited time or you just want to know which of these is going to be the best fit for generalist builds or specialist builds or just pushing your skills to a higher level. There are certainly weapons that exist in the game, and especially within Skitarii, that are going to give you better bang for your buck, right? You are going to invest your time and you're going to see great rewards, you're going to see great synergies with the class, and I want to steer you towards playing with those and away from playing with ones that are junk and that are just going to waste your time because they're understated, they have no synergies, and they're just disappointing in general. So that is why we have our tier list in front of you here today, and we will of course be also taking some time to demonstrate them in the Psychanium in a minute. But this tier list here, let's go through the rankings so you understand exactly what I mean when I'm saying things are in different tiers. At the very bottom is painful to use. These are weapons that are going to be a drag on your overall game experience. They are lackluster in terms of damage, in terms of attacks, and for a lot of melee weapons, by the way, the attack pattern is very, very important. Certain weapons in here are going to be distinguished from their compatriots, from their different marks, just by virtue of their attack patterns. So yeah, these are painful to use all around. They are going to produce worse results than pretty much anything else that you could possibly equip in the slot, and just simply by swapping your melee weapon, you will have a better build. Not build, talent points notwithstanding, it's just simply a weapon problem. It's them, not you. So avoid these at all costs. Next up, we have better options exist. This is a gentle suggestion to move to a different weapon. These weapons are not necessarily bad, right? But they are outclassed in some terms by something else on this class. And so unless you are out of other ideas and you're bored with playing with everything else, you should probably steer clear of these and look into playing with some of those other options. Again, like I said, not a bad weapon necessarily, but it's going to just be a straight upgrade if you take something else. And that's where we get to the two tiers at the top here, where I really think that you should be looking to invest your time and your resources or whatever. High performers is exactly what it sounds like, right? These are weapons that perhaps they don't offer the absolute most synergy that you could have with the class, but they are still very competitively statted. They are able to plow their way through the content in the game, and yeah, I think that they definitely have potential. These are the weapons where I'm keeping an eye on them, because if like someone discovers more stuff about them, or like maybe with more experience, this could ascend to being higher. But I think that most of these are just a little bit capped. They're not quite that absolute top tier because of lacking blessings, because of lacking unique synergies. And that's what puts our top tier up here, incredible and class defining. This is going to be a small subset of weapons, but these weapons are something that can really work with the class. They have something that only this class can provide, and the Skitarii is very unique among the different characters because he offers a ton of debuffs with electricity damage, with brittleness, with all sorts of staggers and stuns. And if you can play into the Skitarii's strengths, if you are able to use a weapon that now boosts the power of the baseline class, I mean, you have a really, really powerful weapon on your hands here on any class, and the Skitarii that applies doubly so for. So that's what we're talking about for incredible and class defining. These are the ones that I think would absolutely be selected for the strongest build in the game or something like that. Hypothetically, if maybe that video is also coming out today. Who knows? But let's go ahead and begin with some weapons that we all know and love. Actually, that's probably untrue. The Power Falchions. Raise your hand if you had never even thought about using the Power Falchion before. I got my hand raised. The last time I used the Power Falchion was shortly after they gave it a moderate buff, and that was maybe 6 months ago. It's a veteran exclusive weapon, or it was until Skitarii came along and just replaced veteran. But here you go. Here's the Power Falchion here. Now, what I will say about the Power Falchion is that it is a relic blade, basically. It has the same sort of heat meter, and this weapon is very easy to use. It is super, super easy to use. It shares a lot of the same moveset with the Power Sword for the veteran, and I actually really enjoy the basic feel of this weapon. If you're wondering like what I think are good blessings on this thing, looking here, I am using Decapitator and Wrath. As you can see, this is a really, really easy setup to get going because this weapon actually mulches hordes. It does very, very good into hordes because of Wrath and because the power mode already gets a bunch of bonus cleave, but then you can just one-shot a bunch of enemies for those Decapitator stacks, and you can get very easily stacked up to some pretty good numbers. So yeah, you can just like kind of go in for one of these. Oops, not one of those. Yeah, there we go. One of those heavy slashes. And anytime you're one-shotting, you are getting those finesse stacks, and then you can take that over here and go in on your bigger targets and really make them hurt. And as long as those finesse stacks stay up, and as long as your power mode stays up, you're good. The problem with this weapon is that once the power mode falls off, you can see we lose a lot of damage. We are kind of behind the curve in terms of damage. That's okay. It doesn't take all that long to reset. The Skitarii has lots of other stuff he can be doing in the meantime while this power's down. I do think it's very aesthetic for the class, although I don't generally like rank by aesthetics. And as far as the two marks here, I personally am a bigger fan of the Mark 1. It's just more comfortable with the moveset that I know from using the Mark 6 Power Sword on the Veteran. Maybe some Power Falchion stan out there is going to be able to advise me in why the Lawbringer, the Mark 2B, is the superior one. I don't know. But as far as where I would place these in our aforementioned talent tree, or what do we call this, a tier list, I suppose, I am going to put these guys somewhere down here in the better options exist category. And I don't say that in any like bad way. I just think that perhaps these weapons are not going to be offering nearly as much as certain other weapons do on the class. They can certainly do work, and we have a very strong host of weapons on the class. They can certainly do some work, but the fact that they are limited to only being able to be used for this short window and the lack of synergies I feel that they provide with the class. They don't have any bonus crit, which the class kind of needs for certain things. They don't really have any ways to apply shock or really, yeah, it's just kind of a strong baseline weapon, but it's really not even that strong for that. So I'm gonna put them down here in better options exist, and we'll leave it at that for now. Hopefully this will make more sense as time goes on. Let's move on to another set of weapons that is a generalist set. We'll do all the Skitarii specifics at the end, and let's talk about the Devil's Claws, okay? So we have 3 Devil's Claws here. We have the Mark 1, the Mark 7, and the Mark 4, I believe. The Mark 4, personally for me, I think that this one is probably down here, maybe in painful to use, maybe better options exist. The weapon is quite unique. I guess I'll put it here at the bottom of better options exist. It is still a Devil's Claw, right? No, I'm gonna put it in painful use. There's really no reason to be using the Mark 4 with the little holes in it here. The Mark 4, and I can't demonstrate this, of course, because the freaking Psychanium mod is still broken. Fix your mods, mod authors. I love you guys. Thank you for all you do. But the Devil's Claw here, this thing, of course, has that unique parry attack. And the parry is sort of what like defines the Devil's Claw. However, it has some other really defining traits for this class specifically, and that's what enables it to not be like absolute dog water all the way down at the bottom. Because this class doesn't have, unlike with Hive Scum, where you could turbo boost your like damage incredibly crazy, this class doesn't have anything where it's going to really boost you for parrying, right? That parry mechanic is just kind of a little bit of fluff. But this class does have a very unique synergy with this weapon, which is through criticals and Skull Crusher. So if you have criticals with this weapon, like you can see here with Electro Strike Conduit, check this out. So when you are doing damage, if you get a crit, you're going to electrocute the first target hit, right? So this means that, yeah, if I stack up my crit here, this is hypothetically, I get this electrocution here. And this is what sort of sets this weapon a little bit above where it would otherwise be, because we can synergize that with Skull Crusher, which is the single strongest blessing in the game. It is still like on top of its throne. This thing is responsible for all the bosses you've seen that are just getting like evaporated. There's Skull Crusher somewhere on the team. And this blessing can stack when you're hitting targets that are stunned, and electrocutions count as stunned. So this synergy of blessings right here, having crit chance and Shred for extra crit chance, and then Skull Crusher for that stacking damage debuff, is actually very, very potent. And that means that we take this talent node right here, and then we can just stack up the damage on the boss, get them stunned up like that, and now they actually do take like a considerable amount of damage. Now, as far as like what's going to actually deal the damage from here, it's probably not you, considering you are just some little jobber, but you could simply pull out your pistol and do work from there. So yeah, this is our fun little synergy we can do here, and we can make work happen with the Devil's Claw. You can also use this just anytime, by the way, anytime you've got the option of Skull Crusher. A lot of times there's a potential to make the weapon pretty good. This one also is not half bad on the bosses like this, right? We can stack up brittleness pretty easily because of that synergy. The synergy between getting crits with Electrostrike Conduit and System Shock cannot be overstated. So any weapons that bias themselves towards having more crits are going to be a little bit better. But as far as like what marks you should be choosing, the best one if you're a high level player has got to be the Mark 7 because of the parry follow up, which is I can't demonstrate it again, but it's like a stab like this, and then you can do an overhead. That's really strong for single target follow up, because you can like parry and destroy people. This weapon also has the Mark 1, which is better for like more casual players where you can light spam and do some heavy strike downs there. But as far as where I'd put these other two marks, I think that they are probably... I think I'm probably doing a disservice to some high performers by putting them any higher, so I'm going to put them right here. I'm going to put them at the top of better options exist, just for the simple matter that these really only exist and have relevance on the class because of one potential blessing. Did I get the right... I can never remember what... Hold on. It's not the one with the holes in it. I can never remember without the... Oh, it is the one with the holes in it. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Okay. I can never remember with the looks, but yes, the holes one is the one that I find very bad and irritating to play with. Okay, so this would be what I'd recommend as far as if you want to play with the Devil's Claw. It's got a cool little synergy there. I just think it gets outclassed a little bit by other options. And yeah, that's where we'll go from there. Okay. Let's move on to talking about some weapons that are really bad in our multi-class. That's the Chainswords, the Assault Chainswords. These things have languished for a really long time. I think that a player who's played even a couple of games, if you touched on this thing and then gone on to play with another weapon, you will immediately feel that this thing is not up to snuff. It is not pulling out the power that it needs to, right? And so even with, the synergies of like, oh, we've got Electrostrike Conduit and we've got this brittleness sort of thing, you could potentially stack up lots of stacks of crit and do something like this, but really, like, that is such bad damage in terms of where the game is at right now, to have to waste this much time revving and then doing that in order to kill an enemy. Yeah, this weapon is this is a problem I've always had with activated power weapons for Fat Shark, is that they design these weapons with the assumption that like the empower mode is going to be such a valuable thing for it, but then that really neglects the baseline of the weapon, and this weapon at a baseline does not do enough damage to justify having that like having the Saul be not like insane. If the Saul was insane and like just insta-killed things, then we could be talking about it, but it takes so long to do its effective damage, and you're going to be locked into an animation. In the olden days of Darktide, when there wasn't a million billion things going on, this could work, right? This could pan out, where you could have the time to actually chainsaw an enemy. But these days, there's so many things happening that during that time, that like 4 seconds where you're chainsawing the dude, like 15 gunners are going to lock onto you and try to kill you, right? So getting your damage done quickly and effectively and making certain the multiple enemies can't attack you back is the name of the game. This weapon does not have enough stagger and damage on its regular attacks to really stand toe-to-toe with anything else. And yeah, I just don't think that there's really any reason to be using the Chainsword on this class. I've tried it, believe me. It's just really weak all around, and it's completely outclassed. If you want a weapon that, this thing, the only thing it really has going for it is you can do crits. The shred potential is kind of right out. If you want a weapon that can do bleeds and crits, well, there's a different weapon you could be using that's way better than this slow-ass piece of junk. And I really hope the best. All the best, I wish all the best for the Assault Chainsword, but it is just not there right now. And neither one of the marks are worth anything because they're just statted far too low for where the game is at. You simply cannot be investing the time to saw anything. It's not realistic, and it doesn't do anywhere near enough damage. And they have taken power away from the baseline of the weapon in order to make that sawing thing a thing, and that baseline power is garbage. So yeah, that's where I'll leave it in painful to use. Don't worry about it. Okay, now we got to go on to those weapons I was alluding to there. That's these daggers, right? The Catachan combat blades. Of course, these are some of the strongest weapons in the game. They are on like most classes, right? These little guys, they are so stupid strong. And the reason that these weapons are so strong is, well, there's a variety of reasons. But one of the main reasons that these are so strong is because they boast really, really good blessings. These blessings can take a variety of forms. You could do Lacerate, right? Lacerate is a very strong blessing. There's lots of ways this class can buff the damage from Lacerate and stack up bleeds on enemies. So you can simply bleed an enemy like this, and then you can start stabbing them in the head, and you can see that the damage start to stack up. This is something that is very, definitely very capable on this class, is stacking bleeds and getting the value out of this. The Skitarii is also a fairly slow class, movement-wise usually, and the dagger helps to offset that. So in builds where you're looking to be aggressive and be fast and stay evasive, the dagger can be a really, really good fit in that bracket. Now, as far as like what you should be equipping for blessings, etc. on this weapon, I was playing with Uncanny Strike with it for a while, but I've actually come around to thinking that maybe the best blessing here is the Riposte blessing. Where is it? This 20% critical chance for 6 seconds on successful dodge. So this combined with the, as we just talked about a second ago, combined with this lovely Electro Strike conduit here, means that when enemies are attacking you and you're dodging, which is quite frequently, you're getting 20% extra critical strike chance. And this boosts the knife to having enough critical chance that he can very reliably be shocking enemies, which is very, very good on the knife, because the knife is a weapon where you are not typically staggering enemies, right? You're typically leaving yourself kind of wide open to attacks. But if you instead come up to enemies and immediately crit them, I don't know if I could get a crit, and then now they are paralyzed for 2 seconds, that opens you up to take full advantage of that. And that leaves them paralyzed with brittleness on. So yeah, taking probably the Riposte blessing plus this Bloodletter, where you can get those extra 4 stacks every time you touch them, or Lacerate rather, where you can get extra 4 stacks every time you touch them in their lower extremities, anywhere down there, that is super, super powerful, because we can stack brittleness on enemies without having to use Uncanny Strike, and we can then just get the benefits of all these crit talents, like Flux Conduit buildup. We can get the power redistribution uplink to be constantly going, and it's just a very, very good fit, especially because a lot of weapons, like there's talents like Sustained Assault Doctrine, they get more powerful as you attack. So if you can attack faster, it's going to be better. We get value out of headshots because it's a good headshotting weapon. Yeah, it just fits very well all around with the class and getting buffs. So yeah, it's not the flashiest thing in the world, but because it can guarantee, like it has one of the highest crit chances for a melee weapon on the class, you can use Electro Strike Conduit with it, you can get System Shock, you can get Retribution Conduit, you can get Entropic Transfer. You're going to get a lot of damage and survivability out of it at the same time. And let's talk about the marks here. We have 2 marks to choose from. I know a lot of people swear by the Mark III. The Mark III is like the Assassin variant, where your first heavy is this, right? However, the problem with this is that what you really want out of the dagger is to be able to get some horde clear out of it. And you of course have like these little attacks like this that you can do like these, and then some strike downs. That's fine. That's not half bad. But for my money, what I have taken to play with, and I have really never looked back, is the Mark VI here. The Mark VI opens with this heavy sweep, and this heavy sweep, especially when you have this talent right here, Shockline Breach Protocol, which gives you 50% extra melee cleave. This weapon has 2 excellent moves. One is the push stab, which comes out super fast like that. That is you're pushing an enemy. You're doing that all the time. And now you have 50% extra cleave, which allows you to cleave through and hit multiple enemies with this heavy strike. And that does good damage as well as applying bleeds to everybody in front of you. And then you just take them out. So yeah, this weapon is super well statted. I mean, it's just a goated weapon all around. It always has been, and this class synergizes with it because it can get extra damage out of brittleness, guaranteed brittleness on shock, and we can add more damage to shocked enemies, etc., etc. Offset some of the bad Skitarii movement. Fits very well with certain talents like Cord Claw Strike. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, I'm gonna put this thing up in the top tier. You know, it's a shame to say class defining, but like, dang, this thing actually does like some serious work, and I think that yeah, it's just solid all around. It's never gonna be not solid. I would rank this 6 higher than the 3, but they both the same blessing, so there's not really any problem there. Now we have to talk about what I think is the single strongest weapon on the Skitarii. I know this might come as a shock to some of you, pun intended, but it's the Shock Maul. You might have noticed it in my builds recently. This weapon, and I'm putting it at the top here, this one specifically, the Munitorum Shock Maul, disgusting, absolutely perfect. It's like fine art, the moveset in this thing. I'll showcase it for you. But this weapon is a weapon that has such potential in terms of what it can do. You know, it defeats certain enemies, and it's a setup weapon, it's a support weapon, right? The reasons that this class is good with this weapon is because it offsets and complements the specific weaknesses and the specific strengths of this weapon. Other classes can't use it as well. So another class that uses this weapon really well is the Arbites, right? The Arbites has a really good follow-up with this weapon, where if you bonk an enemy and you get them guaranteed staggered with the concussive talent that the Arbites has, you can guaranteed stack Skull Crusher, which of course is the reason why this weapon is as high as it is, or one of the reasons anyway. And so Skull Crusher, of course, is an 80% damage taken from all sources, which also applies to your dog. So you simply put a dog on a target and then you bonk them a couple times while they're pinned by the dog, and they're just going to get eviscerated, or you bonk them first and then you put the dog on them, right? And the Arbites can use this thing to stagger enemies. Yeah, it doesn't do that much direct damage itself, but it buffs all the damage that the enemies around take from all the sources, including the dog, including the dog's bleeds, etc., etc. And that is what the power here is it's a setup weapon, and it works really, really well in coordinated teams. You'll know when you have a Shock Maul on your team, when all of a sudden, you know, you've got a boss, like a captain like this, and you start to see the shields getting deleted in such a manner. Now, this isn't even my full power, right? We can go heavier than this, but once the shields are broken, then we come in and we apply some Skull Crusher, and then we do one of these, right? And then we go in and we do it again. And look at the damage to shields now, right? That is the power that this thing can put out. It's just instantly breaking these shields. You'll know when you have one of these in your team because it supports everybody. It's a support weapon. It can provide value for the whole team, and that's the reason why it's so good. But it's not widely used by a lot of the characters because you need a weapon with a baseline that's powerful enough to, like, you know, fight enemies and survive with, right? And that's where the weapon is kind of lacking generally, is it doesn't have the strongest base stats in the world. It kind of lives on it and dies by its blessings, and that's sad. Fortunately for Skitarii, the Skitarii says fuck that. It's going to take its specific talents and make this the strongest baseline weapon on the class. It's disgusting, the buffs that this thing gets out of just being on Skitarii. So not only do we offset the debuff of, you know, this weapon being kind of mid to weak at a baseline, but we also are going to get some really, really cool stuff I'll show you in a second. So first of all, to talk about what this weapon specifically gets is we get an extra bunch of cleave from several talents. We can get a bunch of cleave, which is really nice for being able to cleave through hordes. The horde clear combo on this weapon, this is like a mini instruction tutorial, is heavy 1, light, heavy, light, sorry, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy, light, right? And that horde clear doesn't look too bad, does it? Right? That's the combo there, and that extra cleave means you can cleave through elites as well. You're basically just like baseball cracking their heads to the moon. It's awesome. So we got that. Then we got this talent right here, System Shock. This is one of the strongest talents on the class. Look out for my full talent tree ranking soon, by the way. This is normally only activated when you have a what I will call a Skitarii shock. So there's two types of shock. There's a Shock Maul shock and there's a Skitarii shock. So the Skitarii shock is the type of shock like Electrostrike Conduit here, where the enemies get paralyzed by it. And this is normally only applied by arc weapons or by hitting this crit with this talent right here, Electrostrike Conduit. But this weapon can guarantee it with the little prod there, and we immediately stack ourselves to 40% brittleness, which is an insane debuff to put on armored targets or even bosses. And then we follow that up with the fact that while that target is paralyzed by that little shocky shock, they are counted as staggered no matter what. So now we can do that, and we can tap them 2 times, light attacks. Just look at the difference here, right? Here's 2 light attacks. Here's 2 light attacks after a shock prod. 976 damage, right? That's the difference that this sort of damage it can make. And this is not even all, because up here we have Retribution Conduit, which if you have Redline Capacitors is 35% damage versus electrocuted. And this is what I was talking about with the Shock Maul shock. You might have noticed when I was swinging at enemies earlier, sometimes they're electrocuted like this, right? Where they are paralyzed and they have this brittleness. But other times, if you stagger enemies with this weapon, they get this little zappy, but it doesn't give you the brittleness, and it goes away really quickly. Well, this is also counted as electrocuted. So if you watch a target like this, or where this little mauler here, what'll happen is if a blow would stagger an enemy, it'll apply a shock to him, and then look at the damage jump on those next attacks, right? We are now doing 400 damage, 274, right? That damage jump is from the damage versus electrocuted. Not just this, but also our other blessing on the weapon is damage versus electrocuted. So we have 60% damage versus enemies that we have recently staggered, and if we can hit them again while they're still staggered, Skull Crusher goes into effect and gives us 40, and then 80. It is insane. This thing is able to follow up on its own damage and stacks even more with this up here. But that's not all, because as I said earlier, this is a support weapon, right? What you're really trying to do with this weapon is set up other players for their 1-2 punch. You're making them weak. You're weakening them up. You're softening them up. You're putting the debuffs on, and then someone else is supposed to come with the damage, right? Fortunately, this class is one of the only classes in the game that can bring a ton of its own damage to follow up on its own skills. Because like the RBs, right? What do? You soften up the target and then you put the dog on. That's all you got. But with this class, what can you do? Oh, well, you can do this. You can do 2 bonks, you can do New Spheric Command. And just like annihilate a crusher, right? That is the potential here, is we can just debuff and be the damage dealer at the same time. That is such a disgusting follow-up, and not even to mention like the fact that you can of course do this, and then your claws are going to do 40% more, or like even if you did one of these, where are you? There we go. And now our claw, our swipe claw is enough to kill him, right? That sort of setup is enabling just the most ridiculous amount of damage you could potentially imagine. And yeah, this class offsets all the potential weakness of the weapon. It runs with the blessings. It adds more electrocution status effects, so you get that extra 25% extra damage all the time. And it sets you up to do a fuck ton of damage with the claw, do a fuck ton of damage with the Servo Skull, New Spheric Command, etc., which are some of the strongest fucking abilities on. Oh, by the way, look out for this build soon. With some of the strongest abilities on the class, and it just has such perfect synergy. It is chef's kiss what you can do with this thing, and it will also then provide that debuff, that effect for everybody on the team. So yeah, get this weapon, learn to love it. It's not as flashy or whatever as the Arc Maul and its magic, arcing effects, but this thing, it just amps your numbers insanely, and it's got some really simple movesets. I think I have a video out about how to use this thing, so go check it out and check out the movesets, and yeah, enjoy this while it lasts. I mean, it'll last forever because it's just such a good weapon and no one's really using it. But yeah, disgusting. Okay, so that goes at the absolute top there. Let's go on to some stuff that's behind it. So the Mechanicus Power Sword is one of the most interesting weapons on the class, although I don't think it really is like the most powerful. I still think I have a pretty good grasp on where this is in the power rankings. Certainly I'm still learning about it. This is one of the most complicated weapons in the game, I think. It has such an intricate relationship between the charges, when to use them, when to not. And the really cool thing about this weapon that I think I like a lot is that you can choose at any time to swap an attack with an empowered version of that attack. So notice this, right? If I just do a basic series of attacks, I do those swipes right like that, right? I'll do 2 stabs and then a swipe overhead. But if I just do 2 stabs and then a weapon special, that overhead attack is then empowered. And so the real trick on this weapon is figuring out what are the most powerful attacks to empowered. Now, one of them that I've been able to find is this attack right here, this overhead. That thing fucks. That thing hits like a goddamn truck. It is so much damage, and that's not a non-crit, right? Without any buffs up. So yeah, that is such a demolishing attack. Even more damage than that. You'd think like this would be crazy, right? But no, it's this overhead one right here, and that is normally 2 attacks into the, or sorry, if you do a heavies, it's after like 3 attacks. There it is, right? So, but you can skip to it by doing the push attack right there. So there is so much complexity in terms of like how to access these attacks, these ones that are super powerful to empower. And the rest of the time, you can honestly just kind of keep it the baseline, because the baseline of the blade is not half bad. What I've chosen to go for with blessings with it is Decapitator and Chain Deathblow. Obviously, this is a headshot focus weapon. You need to be hitting heads because, I mean, this thing demolishes them. If you look at its stats here, headshots, we're talking double damage on those headshots. So we want to be hitting headshots, but crits are also good. So we go with both, right? We're trying to get as many headshots as possible, and that's pretty easy to do because these sweeps and stuff, they're pretty much right at head level, especially if you're maximum height Skitarii, and that enables us to lop all these dudes' heads off, etc., etc. I think for many players, the problem is that it's just not a very comfortable weapon to get accustomed to how the moveset works, right? It kind of feels weird, much like the Arc Maul does to me, where it has a kind of an unintuitive moveset. But I think with more practice, this thing can absolutely put out some numbers. I mean, as you're seeing there, right? The ability, the fact that you can one-shot a plasma gunner with an attack, right? Just a regular heavy attack like that is pretty crazy. If you could, if you really think about it, like that's a lot of damage. And yeah, that's going to be the learning curve for many people with this weapon, is figuring out what those specific attacks are that can do these magical sort of special attacks that can demolish enemies. As far as where I would rank it in the power structure, let's talk about that. I think that this weapon is a high performer. It has the stats, it has the potential. It is just the reason that players aren't clicking with it is because the default combo here is not a horde clear combo. For many players, these thrusts are not going to be good enough. The reason that like dueling sword and stuff like that have been powerful in the past is because light spamming was effective at hordes and heavy spamming was effective at heavies. This weapon does not play by those rules. You're going to have to learn some combos in order to effectively deal with your hordes, and then rotate and flex into the elites and the heavy targets and stuff like that. But the power is certainly there. I think that it's just a matter of time, a matter of investment in terms of working with it. That being said, one of the things that the weapon is lacking is any potential like real synergies with the class. It doesn't exactly have anything that's like, oh my gosh, only this weapon can do this. It doesn't like electrify, doesn't get any benefit from these sort of things. It doesn't have any blessings that's I mean, it can get crits, right? It can guarantee some crits, but it doesn't really have a huge disposition towards like getting a bunch of crits all the time, like the dagger does. And yeah, so that's where I think it's lacking. Is it does require a lot of work to make it function. And yeah, it's kind of like the galvanic rifle of melee weapons, I would say, where it's like, yeah, this has good numbers on paper, but utilizing it moment to moment feels a little bit janky, and that's because it's a high skill cap weapon. But I don't doubt that people could do some credible things with it. So I'm gonna rank it up here in the higher, high performers tier just for the baseline stats alone. And so let's talk about another weapon in that same vein, the Transonic Blades here. I think these are also high performers. I think I'm going to put them up here. These Transonic Blades, I did see Reginald's recent video on them. They have like lots of very unique capabilities in terms of they can cleave through armor. They also have these really cool morph attacks, which you can actually change, which is pretty funny. So you can morph in between heavies and lights. You can do like this, and then you can morph back and do a heavy, and then do a light. And then this is transitioning between the attack modes. Now, one thing, maybe it's just my UI, but I feel like I'm lacking, is the indicator. I wish the blades changed color or something, so I could know what, maybe they do. Maybe I'm like crazy. Fast? Oh, it does! Ooh, look at that. Who noticed that? Maybe I'm the first person to notice that in the game. But this is the heavy attack mode. Yeah. Wait, no, is it? No, this is the light attack mode. So light attack mode has the energy going towards the tip of the blades. Heavy attack mode has the energy coming down the blades. That's the difference. So yeah, that's really cool. I was wondering what the tell was there. I would like it maybe there's a slight color shift too, because it's not always that noticeable at a glance. But yeah, these weapons are pretty dang capable. I think that many players were dismayed at first that they weren't just, oh my god, they're not Shivs 2 that's doing like 14,000 damage on a headshot. But also this Skitarii is not a class who boasts a whole lot of like just raw damage, like melee damage power. He certainly has some things in there that can give you some extra melee damage like here and stuff, but not like not at the level where the Hive Scum is, and other classes that have weapons that are like this, like the dueling sword and that sort of stuff that has been, you know, taking the world by storm at one point or another. Usually they have like really big buffs to their attack power that makes those weapons stand out. The Skitarii doesn't really have that, and that means that the weapon needs to stand on its own 2 feet for the most part. And it doesn't boast any real synergies with like stuff up here, right? You'd have to be getting quite a lot of crits in order to be proccing System Shock and then therefore Retribution Conduit as a follow-up, and that's not always going to be capable. So you're kind of operating with the baseline of the weapon, which is reasonable. It's decent, but it's not insane. And I think that's a reasonable place to be for a weapon, though, right? I think it's just a very capable weapon, and it's comfortable. You can play it in the light mode here, and just be cleaving through hordes. It's very good at just like light attacking hordes. Not any problem with that sort of stuff. Gets very nice cleave through them and can capably manage them. Then you can morph it into something and go into doing some heavy attacks and cut down those heavies. It doesn't have any problem with the armor, but it doesn't like really like, you're not going to see any like eye-wateringly huge numbers out of this thing, but it is a very solid, stable weapon. I think if I had one critique about it, I would love if this thing could get a little bit more attack speed. It does feel a little bit slow to do these sort of attacks for the damage that comes out of it, right? I feel like I could spend relatively similar time charging up an attack on another heavier weapon and see a much bigger number. This weapon feels slow for how agile I would suppose it would be, like, you know, lore-wise, and how agile it kind of looks in concept. So that's maybe one thing there. But as far as where I rank this weapon, I think that it definitely is a high performer in terms of its stats. It has the potential. You can play it all the way through Havoc 40, no problem. The damage is there. It is, again, though, it's gate kept from this top tier because it doesn't have any unique synergies that really benefit with the class, right? So, like, yes, you've got this Transonic Blade that can transform. You got some pretty good blessings in here that can give you more crits and stuff like that, but there's nothing in here that I'm like, oh my gosh, this unique thing that this weapon has really enables, you know, this specific build. I just don't know if that's quite there. But yeah, certainly a high performer, well-rounded for lots of different builds. Unfortunate that other weapons are even more well-rounded and can just carry builds with their innate powers, but that's okay. It's okay to have weapons that are just very good rather than being insanely good. Well, we get to finish up with one more that's really, really insanely good, which I think is the Arc Maul. At a baseline, this weapon is very competitive. It has 150 light attack, 300 on a heavy, very high stagger potential. Running it with Hammer Blow here enables you to just stagger every enemy, including crushers, out of their animations, which is really, really good. It can just bully stuff around, right? And it's not that bad for damage, even without considering its special power. Now, what I would recommend with this weapon is stacking 2 things: attack speed and crit. This weapon, it can do headshots, of course, like go for headshots, awesome dog, but the arcs can crit as well. So when you are building for this weapon, then I would recommend probably going into the tree over here, probably coming down here and grabbing your cleave. You want to get attack speed and you want to get crit and more attack speed. So this makes Cleansing Protocols like such a good keystone for this weapon. It's kind of ridiculous. It definitely boosts our damage quite a lot to go with that, because it's just gonna pump the numbers up. So if you have a build like this, right, and you have Cleansing Protocols up, if we actually have the right weapon equipped in our primary slot, you can attack enemies and build up charge. And this is where the real downside of the weapon is. Without extra attack speed, your attacks are really slow, and you can't build up charge nearly as fast when you're not attacking enemies. Like, the attacking enemies is the #1 way to build up charge. It's next to non-existent without bonking some stuff. So I would recommend just finding a horde and cleaving into them and getting through them like that. Now, this weapon doesn't have nearly as much cleave as the Shock Maul does, but that's okay. Not everything can be as good as the Shock Maul. But now, once we get it all charged up, all ready to zap, let's go ahead and demonstrate the arc capability here. So arcing is going to be incredibly valuable when you have lots of targets, especially elite targets, because it seems to seek for them. So when you're activated, the first attack will prime an enemy with electrocution. The second attack will arc off of them. The third attack will arc off of them to someone else. The fourth attack will start to explode, guys, right? So this is just like the way that you can proliferate damage throughout groups. And of course, this works even better if you are going with something that can prime these enemies, like Voltaic Emitter here. If you can prime these enemies and make it so that they are going to take already be electrocuted when you start hitting them, the arcs will start immediately. So this weapon has bonus synergies with abilities like this. So now, if I have a small bunch of enemies over here, okay, now if I shock them all, now immediately my arcs start. And you can see that the difference there is pretty tremendous. This weapon also is really good with Voltaic Emitter because you get an extra 15% attack speed. So you can really go ham for an amount of time, and you can charge your batteries back up super fast. So that's a nice little tip there, is make certain enemies are pre-electrocuted. Using it with the arc rifle is also really good because the arc rifle will pre-electrocute and guaranteed electrocute enemies and give them the guaranteed brittleness buff from system shock. So lots of good synergies there. Why do I consider this weapon like good? Why do I consider it one of the better weapons of the class? Because it is a weapon that brings unique value to the team. You aren't just directly attacking an enemy, right? You can kill one enemy pretty much as fast as you can kill one enemy with the Transonic Blades with this weapon, right? The thing that this thing brings that's special is that you can kill a bunch of other shit too. You can kill everything else behind it. And a fun fact also, the blessing down there enhance Voltaic arcs. This also applies to the arcs that are fired off of Voltaic arcs here. It also applies to the arcs that are fired off of arc grenades, because as long as you're holding the weapon in your hand. So that's really, really cool if there are those synergies available. The thing that makes this weapon, as I was saying, the thing that makes this weapon a higher tier than everything we've seen so far, the thing that puts it up here is because it can play to the strengths of the class, because it's getting extra 25-30% damage from electrocuted, because it can pump damage into multiple targets. It can debuff multiple targets with brittleness. It's really utilizing everything that's there, and it is it's like a wide range destructive capable powerhouse while also maintaining a good baseline. So yeah, this thing it's kind of similar to certain other weapons in the game, like the Force Greatsword, where it can just annihilate a horde if you activate it at the right time. It has the Voltgeist Overload or Voltgeist something, the blessing over here, which can just pop any enemy, 12.5% chance to insta-kill any non-Ogren enemy with an arc. I don't think that's all that great. I would rather go with this shock and then the Overload thing. But yeah, this thing is awesome. It just feels very good to use. The only problem I've had with it is learning the attack chain. My brain has been broken by Shock Maul so much, but as far as I understand, 2 overheads, then light overhead repeat, light heavy, or rinse and repeat. That's your single target combo. Very effective, right? You can see there, not half bad damage. Of course, no Skull Crusher, but we can all be Shock Maul again. And then as far as heavies, just throw a single attack and then spam heavies forever, and you'll be doing this all day. One thing I will complain about though for this weapon is that this right hand heavy attack, it seems to have like a little bit like finicky. I feel like sometimes I'm over here holding the attack like this, and if I'm just like a little bit too light on the trigger, it'll give me an overhead. It doesn't happen every time, but it'll break me out like that. It'll break me out of that combo because I didn't hold it quite long enough. But that's a matter of attack speed. The more attack speed you have, the better that feels, because that wind up is like really long over there. But yeah, stack attack speed, stack crit, so you can get those arcs to crit, and then go to town on enemies. It's very synergistic. It feels cool. It's definitely a very Kino sort of weapon with the class, and I think that they definitely have a winner on their hands here. I wish it had a second mark to have some different movesets, but that's just me. Anyway, I think that brings us to the full complement here, doesn't it? Yes. So in review of everything that we discussed here, at the very bottom, these painful to use tiers, they just do not have the stats. They don't have the raw power to get your way through the game. You're going to be fighting individual enemies for too long. The weapon specials they have are weak and ineffectual. The reason that this Devil's Call is down here, by the way, is it has a bad parry, whereas the other two have nice big sweeping parry so they can clear out hordes. Yeah, these are just going to make your life miserable to try and make these work. Then we have a reasonable power level up here with better options exist. These weapons, they're fine. It's just that with the power level, which is high on this weapon, or on this class with a lot of weapons, we just have better things to be doing. If you want to be playing with the Power Falchion, I think that you could probably invest your time in learning the Mechanicus Power Sword and get some better results, because this is pretty much always going to have those sort of one-shot empowered attacks that the Mechanicus Power Sword or the Power Falchion is going to have only some of the time. And the Devil's Claws, I think that maybe this class doesn't have the most synergy with it, doesn't have enough baseline juice to survive and do the parrying nonsense that other classes can. But that's just neither here nor there. And then we'll have the high performers up here. Notably, these are weapons that have a lot of complexity to them, right? They have a lot of depth. I'm certain that I'll see people out there who are doing crazy stuff with these crazy numbers, because the numbers are there. The potentiality is there. The problem that I have with these weapons, or not the problem, but like the thing that brings these weapons behind the absolute toppest tier is because they don't have the capability of really capitalizing on some of the unique stuff this class can do. And this class, a lot of its unique stuff comes down to critting and comes down to electricity, and these weapons all do that, right? So when we look at the top of the talent tree up here, we have a ton of talents about like critting electrocutes, and getting crits builds back your charge. And then we have, electrocuting enemies applies brittleness. We have damage versus electrocuted. So if you can't really play into those sort of strengths, and you can't also augment the baseline power of the class by attacking fast and moving and getting some movement speed, that's another really great way that the daggers are relevant here. And I kind of am loath to put the daggers up here because they're just powerful like stat sticks. They're just normal weapons that somehow snuck their way into this game, but they just are so powerful because bleeds and because crits and because shocking bleeds and crits and brittleness, right? It makes it adds up. So they just are strong, right? I can't deny that they are capable, even if you don't want to play with them. But it's okay if you don't want to play with them. You have some really cool options up here. You could go for these swords, or you could go for the shocking arcing type of mauls. We have the arc maul, which is it's a powerhouse in its own right. It's going to synergize with this arc build, especially if they fix up Voltaic Emitter and make it actually function and not get blocked by the tiniest little obstacle. And it can really just annihilate hordes. It just pulverizes everything in front of it. It's a little bit more complex to use. And then on the other hand, we have the incredible setting up the dominoes to knock them down power of the shock maul that can be the 1-2 punch for the cord claw, can be the 1-2 punch for the drone. And yeah, it's just nasty work. The amount of augmentation this can put into your damage, plus all those synergies with the brittleness and the electricity, all that good stuff coming home to roost. So these have immaculate synergies with the class. These a little bit less so, but they still have good stats. And then down here we get worse and worse stats all the way down. That's what I think, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and Mystery's out of here. Bye bye.